Hi all, welcome to session 40 of Azure Data Factory. And in the last session, we started discussing different kinds of triggers that we can use in our data factory pipeline. Last session, we covered schedule trigger. Okay, so schedule trigger is going to be scheduled based on a certain time period, and according to that, it is going to run in the recurring mode. So it's like if you are creating a schedule trigger where you want to run your pipeline every single day from Monday to Saturday on, let's say, 9 p.m. Indian Standard Time, that is something that you can do using a schedule trigger. Okay, any trigger that you want to, any pipeline that you want to run on a particular time on the daily basis or as per a particular frequency, you use schedule trigger. Okay, in today's session, we are going to use another very popular event trigger that is called a storage driven trigger. So in storage event trigger, what we do whenever we put a file in a data lake storage path, we can trigger pipeline based on the arrival or deletion of file on that particular path. So I would say you are getting a file from an outside source outside of Azure. Okay, that source is going to put a file in your ADLS Gen 2 account on a particular path. This storage event trigger will keep on monitoring that path. As soon as that file arrives, this event trigger will trigger your pipeline. That pipeline will pull the file from that path, perform the transformation or whatever logic you have coded in that pipeline, and will put the final output at some particular location. In such scenarios, you use storage event trigger. So when you don't know at what time your pipeline will be triggered because it is dependent on the arrival of a file in storage, then you use storage event trigger. Okay. We have to keep in mind the two properties that storage event trigger gives us. First is folder path and the second is file name. And make sure you define the properties as they are given. So at the rate trigger body folder path and at the rate trigger body file name. You should give the names exactly as it is. Okay. If you want to reference the values given by these variables or these parameters. Okay. I would say parameters, not variables. Variables are something that we define. Parameters are given by the entities. Okay, so storage event trigger will give you these two parameters. One is folder path, another one is file name. Okay, now let's start working on our pipeline. So I'm going to go into my Azure portal. Let me open my data factory. Okay, let it open. Fine. Now I'm going to create a new pipeline and I'm going to call it pipeline storage event trigger demo. Okay, for now I am going to create two variables of string type. I will tell you why I am doing it. Okay, but for now I'm just going to keep these two variables. Okay, let me create the variables so that I can use them in set variable activity. I'm going to say file path or say folder path and file name. And as you have guessed by the name of these variables, we are going to use these two variables to store the parameters, folder path and file name that will be given to us by the storage event trigger. Okay, fine. So you cannot use these parameters directly in your variable. They have to come through the pipeline parameters. So always the triggers will pass the parameters to pipeline parameters. After that, pipeline parameters can pass this to like data set or variables. So triggers will always interact with the pipelines, not with the activities that are in the pipelines. Okay, so let me create the parameters. I'm going to create two parameters, pipeline parameters, folder path and pipeline parameters, file name. Okay, done. In the settings, I'm going to initialize the variables with the corresponding pipeline parameters. folder path, and file name. Okay, so what we did, we said we have two variables that are going to store folder path and file name respectively, and these values will be given to these variables by the pipeline parameters, and the pipeline parameters will get this from the storage event trigger. Okay, so I'm going to just change the names so that they are easy to understand. Set folder path, set file name. Okay, cool. We have parameters, we have variables are now initialized. Then I'm going to go and create a new trigger. If you go and choose new, you will get options. Right now I'm going to use storage events. I'm going to say trg storage event demo. Then this is going to ask you to fill the details of the storage account. So right now I'm going to use my data lake storage account. Let me go back to my data lake that I have in this resource group, ADF demo ADLS account, and here I'm going to use source. Let me delete these two, and I'm going to add storage event. I'm just creating some directories so that you are clear. We can have a very deep path for the trigger. So add a directory, event file, and here I'm going to upload a file. So I'm going to go for browse files, and I have some files with me. So let me go to downloads. In the archive, I have a dummy file, Dubai properties. I got it from Kaggle. You can also get it. So I'm going to say Dubai properties.csv. I'm going to upload. Just remember this. We have source container. In that we have storage event directory. Inside that we have event file directory. And in that we have a file. Cool. So here what it is asking you to provide the container. So we have source. Just click on the drop down and get the option. After that, what you have to do is you have to give the path. So just click on this I button or hover on it. It is going to give you the format. So you should start with the first directory, and before that you should not give any slash. After that you should put whatever files you have, whatever folders you have. Okay, so there are two ways. If you want to pick all the files, you just put a slash. If you want to pick a specific file, you go till the last file name. Okay, right now I'm going to just put event storage event, sorry, storage event file, if I'm not wrong, storage event file. And I want to pick everything, so I'm going to say blob path ends with csv. So right now I'm just putting .csv here. Okay, you should, you like it is going to explain you, so don't worry about it. If you just read how to give these values, you will be able to figure out. So I am just putting .csv because I want to pick everything. And you have two options: blob created, blob deleted, and ignore empty blobs is something that we will explain later. So right now if you see, I'm just clicking on blob created. That means if you delete the blob, your pipeline won't be triggered. Right now it is only going to get triggered if the blob is newly created. Ignore empty blob means if file has no values, it is going to treat the blob as null. So it's like if you put an empty file, your pipeline won't get triggered. But if you want to make sure that pipeline gets triggered as soon as file arrives, no matter whether file has data or not, you can just keep it as no. Right now I'm keeping it as it is. It is the default option, and it is going to ask to start the trigger. So I'm going to start the trigger. Now if you see, it is matching the expression that I have given, like what is the container name, what is the folder path, what is the file name, extension, etc. And based on that, like if you see container name source starts with storage event file and ends with .csv, it picked one file. So if you see, it is already there. So it is what it is what we are going to get. So based on whatever we have put in our container name starts with and ends with, it matches the expression, and whatever files are satisfying that, it is going to give you a preview of it. So we are good. Right now it is catching the dubai properties.csv, so that is good for us. Now if you see, it is asking for plp folder path and plp file name. This is where we have to put those two parameters. So how we put it? Trigger body @trigger body dot folder path. Make sure it is case sensitive, so put exactly how it should be: trigger body dot file name. Okay, and publish. In the meantime, let me go ahead and delete. So why I put this file here? Because I just wanted to check whether my expression that I have given in the storage event trigger is correct or not. Since we are catching this file in our storage event trigger, that means our expression is right. I'm going to delete it. In the meantime, let the pipeline and trigger gets published, and after that we will upload the file and see what happens. Publishing completed. Fine. Now let's go to our monitor. Right now, if you see, in the storage event we don't have anything. Okay, you can see in the all also, but just to filter, I'm just keeping the check in the storage event tab. All the storage event triggers that are being triggered in the last 24 hours will be seen here. Okay, now I'm going to upload the same file again. Dubai properties, upload. It's uploaded. Let's see what happens. As you can see, the storage event trigger got triggered. Okay, and it will trigger our pipeline. So now pipeline is also triggered and it is complete. Let's see what happens. So as you can see, in the folder path you get the complete path, source, storage event file, and in the file name you get the file name. So combining these two, you will get the complete file path. Okay, now using this we can go ahead and change the pipeline that we have created. So now I can add a copy activity to this pipeline, and I'm going to say copy Dubai properties.csv. Okay, I cannot put this, so I'm just removing .csv there. In the source, I'm going to use my ADLS Gen 2. Fine. So as you know that it was giving you the container name as well. Okay. So there are two ways to do it. Either use a split and get the container name, or you can hard code the container and go for the folder path. Okay. So I'm going to choose the simple option. I'm going to say it is source container. And here what I'm going to do, I'm going to say replace which variable stores the folder path. This one, source slash with nothing, and in the file name I'm going to keep the file name as it is. So what this expression will do, if I go ahead in the monitor one more time and if I open this, in the folder path if you see we have source slash, right? So replace is going to replace this much with nothing. So essentially what we will get in the end, we will get storage event and event file. So in our data set we have three parameters. It is asking for you to provides container name, file path, and file name. So since we have a container parameter, we are hard coding it, so we are putting source there. Okay, we can take some parameterized approach also, but just for sake of understanding, just keep this source as hard coded in the container parameter of the data set. Just replace the source slash in the file path and put the file path variable as it is in the put the file name variable as it is in the file name parameter. So this is what we have done here, right? So source is set. Now in this sync, again what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the same sync, again add variable, but first I'm going to put replace file folder path. Then here I'm going to say replace source slash this, and again I'm going to use file name parameter as it is, file variable as it is, file name variable. So now we are done with our copy activity. Okay, we hard coded container and then we replace source slash from the folder path with nothing using replace. That should do. Now let me validate. It's good. Let me publish. I'm going to delete this one more time. So technically, based on our configuration, the same file should be present in storage event file in the sync container. Okay, publishing completed. Let's go back to our trigger runs in the storage event. I'm going to upload the same file again. Let's see. Again, if you see, we got a storage event trigger and it was on 2:48 my time. Now if I go to pipeline runs, your pipeline is successful. Last pipeline executed in 3 seconds. Since it does not have a copy activity, now we have a copy activity, so it took 17 seconds. If you go and check, you have copy activity, and if you check, you have the file transfer. So you got the file in your sync. Now let me go to my sync container, and if you go to sync, you will have a storage event file and Dubai properties.csv. Fine, we can't do that because we have 13.42 MB of size. It is only allowed till 2.1 MB. Cool, no problem. So uh, I hope you have understood how to configure storage event trigger. First things first, get the parameters in our variable, because that way it will be easier for you to play with them. Then run the pipeline once without any copy activity or without any further transformation. This is to check whether you are able to get the storage event parameters in the variable correctly, and when you have a sample value in the variables, you are able to imagine how you are going to transform those variables in order to get the exact data that you want in the from the storage event trigger. So I did not need source container in there because I had a separate parameter. So I just removed with the replace. You can try any other way. So that is my habit. I do that way. If there is any efficient habit, just let me know. Like I will try that as well. But I usually follow this practice with storage event trigger. We get the parameters into variable. After that, we play with them based on our requirements. Okay. So today we only saw how we get the storage event triggers when the file is created. In the next session, we will see how we can use that when the file is deleted. Okay, so that was all for today. Let's meet in the next session and we will continue with the storage event trigger there as well. Thank you so much.